Professor, good to see you and appreciate your time. Good evening, and thanks for staying back to do this with us. In your assessment, how did Secretary Blinken's visit go?
I think well and predictably. Basically, this is part of the build-out from the San Francisco summit between President Biden and Xi in November. They laid not just a floor under what had been a rapidly deteriorating relationship, but a foundation on which they're trying now to build. So Secretary Blinken was there last week, a couple of weeks before. Secretary Janet Yellen was there. In a couple of weeks, there'll be the Secretary of Commerce there. Actually, I was there 2 weeks ago, as well as part of a business group. So I would say we're in a period of fairly intense conversations between the parties, and the relationship is becoming slightly more stable, even though fundamentally it remains a struggle between competition on the one hand and cooperation on the other.
Professor, I have to ask, ahead of that visit, Secretary Blinken made some pretty pointed comments again about China and Xinjiang. Just before touching down, that's probably hard for the Chinese to swallow. What do you think?
Well, again, it's complicated, as you know very well. So often what leaders say in their public statements are for their own publics. And certainly this is an issue that's a real issue, but it's also one that Tony cares a lot about. Whether talking about it in the way that he did is likely to make anything different, I'm slightly skeptical. But I think what's clear is that the U.S. and China are each going to speak out about issues about which they disagree, and very importantly, why the communication and the visits are so important, particularly the private, candid conversations like the one President Biden and Xi held in San Francisco, is that they ought to be clear where they disagree, because we don't want to stumble in some unexpected way into a conflict that would be unnecessary. But in many areas, there's possibilities for cooperation, and certainly fentanyl, as you mentioned in the list there, has been one of the issues that President Biden talked to Xi about, and I'm sure Secretary Blinken did. And actually, some things have actually happened, so that's a slightly more promising arena.